This week's video is sponsored by Mud Water. If you want the ritual of your morning coffee without any anxiety, jitters, or crash, then give Mud Water a try. Mud Water is a coffee alternative that we love to drink on cool mornings that help us start our busy mornings off right. With a seventh of the caffeine as a cup of coffee, you get energy and can drink mud all day long without impacting your sleep. Add a tablespoon to hot water, add whatever you like, and off you go. Mud Water sent us their starter kit. That includes a 30-serving tin of mud, USB rechargeable frother, and a free sample of their vegan coconut creamer. The tins are recyclable and the creamer has compostable packaging. Mud is 100% USDA certified organic, non-GMO, gluten, and vegan-free. Mud includes ingredients like cacao, chai, lion's mane, chaga, and cordyceps, which offers a huge range of benefits including helping your mood, focus, physical performance, and your immune system. Try Mud Water today and get 15% off their starter kit by clicking the link in our description box and using the code REDPOPPYRANCH.
When the sun's going down, no stars in the sky, I'ma head down the road across county line, where they roll up the smoke, they pour beer and wine, and hearts break on the jukebox, where the neon stars shine, where the neon stars shine, and the whiskey flow in the dark of the night. Just doing our time where the neon stars shine, where the folks gathered around, they all look the same, they know my train, but can't remember my name. Ain't nobody listening, that suits me just fine. Oh, they wanna hear me cry where the neon stars shine, where the neon stars shine, and the whiskey flows in the dark of the night. Just doing my time where the neon stars shine. Where the neon stars shine and the whiskey flows in the dark of the night, so nobody knows we're hanging on a memory, and I'm hung out to dry, just doing our time where the neon stars shine.
The idea of building that barn light slash gas station light slash whatever you want to call it has been bouncing around in my head for the last year. I finally ordered an inexpensive tubing bender that ended up being more effective as a paperweight, but I love the way that little galvanized light turned out. Smile for the camera.
I know I'm no cameras.
Every time I would go to the feed store, I would look at the parts and pieces needed to build that light, and I finally decided to give it a try. I may revisit that in the future. In the meantime, I need to get the hillside fenced. We happen to have some good friends of ours from Snowflake, Arizona here with us for a few days. Our good friends Casey and Brittany and their kids. And while they're here having a little bit of fun, I'm going to work on the fencing so I can move the goats from the front yard to the hillside where we have plenty of feed. A few months back, I picked up 100 of these 4-inch pressure-treated posts that I'm going to use on this first section instead of using a T-post. A T-post would more than likely last longer, but it wouldn't look quite as good as these pressure-treated posts will look. I've decided to take a couple days and get the fence stretched as fast as I can to do the job properly anyway. But to get this whole section up here pinned off for the goats. And I hadn't moved the plow truck in quite a while. And of course the plow truck has become a magnet for yellow jackets. So I've gotten stung once today, but I've got about 300 yellow jackets that keep eyeballing me. So anyway, the plan is to go across the front here, get all the posts set, spend maybe the next 2 days getting posts set, and then depending on how far I get, I'm either going to get back on the roof and start working on the roof, or if I can, I'm gonna work really hard to get the fence up and running. But man, these yellow jackets are not going to make it easy on me. I'm going to use that same goat fencing that we've used around the front yard up here on the hillside. A couple of months back, I picked up a couple of rolls of it, so I'm hoping that I have close to enough, but I may have to pick up one more roll. So far, the goat fencing that we put around the front yard, where the goats are now, has kept the goats in. But the downside is those 9 goats are leaving their mark on that front yard. So in the long run, my hope is that the goats are only in that front yard area during the wintertime, and they can spend all the rest of their time up here on the hillside. Along the sides of the property, I do have 5-string barbed wire with T-posts, and I will likely stretch the goat fencing up against that barbed wire and use the T-posts to support it, instead of using the pressure-treated posts along the side. I'm only putting the pressure treated posts about 2.5 feet in the ground, and I'm deliberately leaving them a little bit tall, potentially for some different animals in the future that may need a taller fence. All right, because we don't consistently have chlorine in our water system, even though I shock the well and the tanks a couple of times a year, even with all the filters I have and the ultraviolet lights, for whatever reason out of the fridge, the plastic tubing in the fridge likes to get whatever it is, an algae of some kind, or probably not an algae, it's probably a bacteria that's harmless because, again, the ultraviolet light does its job, but it's not fun. It's not fun to see floaties in your water every time you go to get a drink. I ordered a kit to flush out my tankless water heater, and I came up with a way to hook this pump up to the 1/4-inch line without pulling the fridge out, without trying to fish the 1/4-inch stainless line that I have in place. All that I'm going to do is use one of Cedar's stainless salad bowls. Hold that for me. I'm going to reduce from the hose bib to 1/4-inch. I'm going to put the pump in the bowl, fill the bowl up with a high-grade vinegar. This is super strong vinegar. You can buy this at your big box stores. And I'm going to recirculate it and flush it. And the goal here is to flush every bit of whatever that is. That little bit of, I think it's a combination of hard water buildup as well as some, maybe some bacteria or something. And I'm just going to flush it. Normally with a tankless water heater, you flush it for half an hour to 45 minutes at least. I'm going to do something similar with this. So let's see what happens when we do this here. Okay, I've got the 1/4-inch line tied into the pump. I've got the windows open. This stuff can be pretty stinky. It's even caustic too. I mean, it'll burn your skin, so you gotta be kind of careful with it. But I plugged the pump into the garbage disposal switch so I can control turning it on and off. So what I'm gonna do now is fill it up with the vinegar, turn the switch on, then turn the refrigerator on using a pitcher, one of Cedar's pitchers, to catch whatever comes out. I'm really curious to see what's going to come out. Okay, so normally I would have taken the filter out of the refrigerator, but I couldn't find the little adapter thing that bypasses the filter, so it's going to be a sacrificial filter. Okay, ready? Flip it on. Okay, watch that pump. Is it spilling or anything?
No.
Okay, let it run. Whatever that was building up in the 1/4-inch water line, the vinegars basically made it dissolve away. But I'm going to keep running this through for, I'm going to do at least 30 minutes, maybe even longer. I keep replacement filters on hand, and I change them out regularly. So this is the last thing I got to do is change out that water filter. Then I think we're back online and should be good to go. Turn the water off. Okay, no more floaties in the water. Water tastes great. Now I'm gonna go into the utility room, hook that pump up to the tankless water heater, and I'm actually gonna use a descaler first. I may use that vinegar second again, and I can reuse that vinegar until it's just been diluted to the point where it's no longer effective. But the tankless water heater, I'm gonna let it recirculate for about an hour. Cedar's gone with the kids, nobody's home. It's a great time to do this. And that tankless water heater is overdue as far as flushing is concerned. It has been said that plumbers have done more for disease prevention than any doctor could have dreamed of through safe water and basic sanitation. Over the last 150 years, as people began to understand what cross-contamination is, the difference between good and bad bacteria, people not only lived longer, but healthier lives. In our situation, I try not to use chlorine any more than I have to. Using carbon and sediment filters along with ultraviolet lights, this eliminates the possibility of anything potentially dangerous, but there are still things that I have to do to keep our drinking water as safe as it can be. When my little brother was in his early teens, he went through the same wilderness survival program that I would end up going through a couple of years later. But when he got home, he told me about some of the conditions where they had to find drinking water in the high deserts of Arizona. And sometimes that water was few and far between. One particular time he talked about finding a cow pond with a dead cow in that cow pond, and they were still able to fill their canteens, treat their water with a little bit of chlorine, and drink that water, and they avoided dehydration in the process. In that situation, the solution to potentially contaminated water was again using a little bit of bleach. There are studies that show that the overexposure to bleach is potentially cancerous. So there's a fine line there. So like I said, I try to avoid using bleach as much as possible, but it's a necessary evil. While it doesn't bother me a whole lot that there might be a floaty or two in my drinking water, it bothers the kids and Cedar. So after flushing that vinegar through our refrigerator for about 45 minutes, we eliminated whatever happened to be in that last quarter-inch line feeding the water dispenser on that fridge. There's always an opportunity to learn and adjust with our lifestyle, and this is probably something I'm going to have to do again in the future. All right, I'm gonna let this go for almost an hour. I've got it set up to where it shouldn't spill or leak. And I'm gonna go do some other stuff while this is running. I'm curious to see if anything comes out of it. The tankless water heater's been running for over an hour, and I've checked the fluids. I've checked the descaler on and off just to make sure everything was going right. And maybe 20 minutes ago, last time I checked it, that descaler was black as night. And I just came in and checked it now, and this is what it looks like. All of the buildup is now connected to, isn't that crazy? That stainless hose is acting like an anode rod or something there. Now I'm going to reconnect everything, put everything back together, and then I'm going to flush out the water heater using water. All right, we're plugged back in and ready to go. I'll put the pump and the washing machine hoses away, and I'm gonna make an effort to do this, what I just did, flush out the tankless water heater on a more regular basis. So the only thing I'll have to pick up in the future is some of that vinegar that I used on the refrigerator, or I could even get a little bit stronger stuff and use some descaler. But we're back online, we're good to go. There was a time early on when I tried to find a 3-point tractor mounted auger that I could use around the property whenever I needed to drill holes deep into the ground for fence posts. I never picked up that 3-point post hole auger, but instead, about a year ago, I picked up this earthquake auger with a 12-inch bit and a 4-inch bit. And while this thing requires a little bit more work, I can easily take this auger places where I would never be able to get a tractor-mounted 3-point post hole auger. The only difference obviously being that this auger requires way more effort than a tractor-mounted auger would. But I suppose it's good exercise. I even picked up an 18-inch extension, so when I want to put one of these railroad ties very deep in the ground, I can do it. For the most part, our soil has very little rock in it until you get down a few feet. But there are places on our property where the topsoil is thin and those rocks come to the surface. Most of this area around where we live has been directly affected by volcanoes. On a fairly regular basis, I dig down and find what seems to be leftover volcanic ash. And while it's definitely interesting, hopefully we don't deal with that again anytime soon. But I regularly point out to my kids, as we look at the mountains around us, that almost all of these mountains are old volcanoes. I'm deliberately leaving these pressure-treated posts a little bit high out of the ground in case I need to extend the fence up even higher than the 48 inches that it will be. And this is not necessarily to keep the goats in, but we're considering picking up some other animals that may have the ability to jump a 4-foot fence. And if we decide to go through with this, I'll likely have to stretch some barbed wire over the top of the goat fence. But in the meantime, I need to get the goats moved from the front yard up here to this hillside. The goats have us pretty well trained at this point. First thing in the morning, when they notice any movement around the house, they all collectively make enough noise where usually Cedar gets out and has to feed them first, just to quiet them down. Once I get the goats moved up on the hill for the rest of the summer and fall, the idea is that we'll be able to start on the new barn where the old chicken coop is now. So while I need to get back on the roof on the house, getting the fence installed up here for the goats definitely helps in one of the next projects I hope to get to once the roof has been finished and the solar panels are moved from the ground to the roof. In one of our earliest videos, I tried to compare this piece of property here before we had purchased it to a piece of property that was comparable in size, but it was on completely flat ground, and it sat up against one of the major rivers in the area, and it also happened to have an unfinished house on the property. Truthfully, I was more interested in that piece of ground and that unfinished house simply because it was easier for me to see the potential in that piece of property than I could in this piece of property. The irony is, the very next spring, that piece of property flooded pretty dramatically because it was so low and close to that river. And had we bought that piece of property, we would have likely ended up with long-term flooding issues, and I more than likely would be back to being a plumber, and I suppose the rest is history. All because we chose this particular piece of property. Our life dramatically changed for the better. But I knew that this piece of property would require more effort than I'd likely put into anything in my life up to that point. I regularly think back on how different our life could be had I turned left instead of right. I choose to believe in a little bit of divine intervention in that particular moment in my life. Next week, I will finish the fencing, get back on the roof, and hopefully get close to finishing it by the end of next week.
goodness. How'd you like the lake?
What's going on, buddy? You got bucked off twice. What happened? Huh? You got bucked off.
So I did that, and then we turning to the right, there's like a big bump, and I was on the right, and it like left me off. And then the second time I was just being dumb and just stood up and fell off.
How'd it feel?
I twisted, and then my pants fell off.
Oh dear.